other goals, which therefore makes it pivotal to our development as a country. I can mention poverty, goal 1, education, goal 4, I can mention hunger, goal 2, and well-being, goal 3. So it's a discussion that's worth happening. We know also that the trends are such that water resources are dwindling, partly because of climate change, but also because in the wake of that, or within that context, there are also competing uses of water resources. And we are on the verge of stress. I think the Deputy Ambassador mentioned it, but there are other to that effect. If we do not address issues on hand, we will struggle to address all or many of the other sustainable development goals, which are all designed to enhance the welfare of us as a country and as a people. So I think this is a key discussion to address access, safety, security, all in the context of climate change.
Please, am I audible? Yes. So I might say it's very important, and I'm very happy that young people in our midst. Yes, indeed, everywhere, but not even a single drop is very true. Because looking at the water around us, it is heavily polluted. And indeed, if we are taking this water to drink, then it's better we don't drink at all. But how, as human beings, can we stay without water? Which is impossible, because about 70 to 80% of our body is made up of water. And you cannot stay a single day without water. You can stay without food, without access, but water, water, not just a single drop. So with the heavy metals that are polluting our water bodies, what happens is that, as he rightly said, these water bodies are readily available to us, the surface waters, and then we fetch some for washing, we fetch some for even cooking, those who cook in commercial quantities. The last time on the news, one of the news items on water pollution, a woman who actually prepares acheke, which is one of the delicacies around, actually just told us that when she fetches the surface water, all she puts in is alum, just to clear the color. But what about the rest of the metals and the pollutants that she adds to the acheke? We are just buying and eating. So imagine that you have fetched maybe a bowl, a bucket of water polluted with mercury or arsenic. And then this lead, you are eating it in your acheke. You've maybe bought your acheke, very nice with your fish. And then it contains this mercury. What this mercury is going to do is that it's going to be deposited in your brain tissues, in your heart, your liver, and your kidneys. And in the long run, what we are going to see in the next 5 years to come as we continue to consume this is we are going to see a high surge of kidney failures, people that are needing dialysis. And we are already seeing it because these are water bodies have been polluted for years. And we are now seeing the surge of these kidney failures. So the heavy metals are indeed polluting our water bodies and then killing us slowly. And as such, we are going to see the effects. Sometimes you even get to, there are research that show that for pregnant women who ate fish in these polluted water bodies, they had babies who had brain damages. And these babies had to take longer years to walk than is expected. And we are seeing a lot of children now who are actually talking at 4 years, they are still not talking. At 4 years, they are still not walking. And our pediatricians are worried because what is happening? And if we trace this back, we actually can tell that these heavy metals like mercury can deposit in the brain tissues, in the nerve tissues, and they are giving us these damages that we are seeing. So indeed, these heavy metals are actually killing us slowly.
Now, we'll come back for you to give us details of the cases you are recording, because we were having a conversation earlier. You were giving me some details of the cases you are recording, but I'll go back to Dr. Ansah. Now, with this heavy pollution, which areas are we finding them the most?
Thank you. Now, for the metals, they are usually found in galamsey areas, galamsey-prone areas. However, water is not stagnant; it moves. Therefore, if that is where it is taking a source of pollution from, then definitely those downstream will also have the same effects.
So, like in areas such as Western region where we have some galamsey activities, parts of the Ashanti region, these are the areas where there is that heavy pollution.
In terms of the environment, yes, these are the areas that have heavy pollution.
Now, Mr. Samuel, now, Doc mentioned the fact that this heavy pollution seems to be affecting the development of children, especially those in these areas. You work a lot with children. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I think the whole mission of UNICEF, or for that matter, for any nation, is to ensure that its future is guaranteed. And the development and survival of the children is critical to that. So it just makes it a bit more difficult if from the very beginning, when they are developing their cognitive ability, physical ability, these issues occur. Because in addition to these ailments that are passed on through their through their parents or through their mothers. There are also things that they are picking up from within the environment when they are here. We know that under five stunting and issues are heavily related to diarrhea, osmotic diarrhea in particular, because children lose a lot of nutrients if they pass through several bouts of diarrhea when they are in that growth phase. So that very first few months of their life or very first few years of their life, they lose a lot in terms of cognitive ability and also growth, which obviously then will affect our future productivity as a country. So it's an issue that's really, really serious and needs to be addressed.
And earlier in our conversation, I was telling you that, in fact, on my way here from Accra, on the STC bus that I boarded, I saw some school children, senior high school children, who had bought packs of water to use in school. And I was wondering, is that how bad the situation is? When you hear stories like this, how does that make you feel? Do you think that the situation is that bad that students now have to carry packs of water to school because they do not feel that the water they are taking on campus is safe?
Well, I think the situation has various facets. In some places, it may be quite bad. But I think now we've come to a situation where, in our own perception, many of the sources of water we receive, even from the utilities, Ghana Water Company, from Community Water and Sanitation Agency, etc., in our minds, all the water is not good. So that might also account for the fact that children are going to school and they find it necessary to carry packs of water with them, if I should put it that way. Because there was a time also in the past where we turned on the taps and we drank water. Given that the water goes through a treatment process, still seems not to be enough for us. But it's a reflection of the issues that have gone on in terms of the environmental pollution and the imprint that has made on our minds in terms of the quality and the safety of the water we are drinking. But having said that, water safety has to start right from the source of the water. So the galamseys and the rivers also issues is a paramount issue to address, but also down to the point of use. So how we store water at the household level and the transportation of water through pipelines, the state of the infrastructure of those pipelines, and also some behavioral issues. We also know that in our country, sanitation is an issue. We have very high open defecation rates. And these are all things we have to think about when we talk about managing water quality or water safety. And that's what's obviously at the back of our minds and informing the fact that we are all carrying packs of water to school to drink these days.
Now, Dr. Eugene Ansah, do you think that we've gotten to a point where it has become necessary for students to be packing their own water to school because they feel that the water they are drinking on campus is not safe? From the research and your experience.
Well, this thing there, it's now getting prominence, and that's why probably they are now carrying their packs of water to school. Research has indicated that even our tap waters that we get from Ghana Water has some levels of methyl in them. That's because the capacity of their treatment system is only for purification and clarification, but not for taking away metals or other pollutants, because that's what was bequeathed to us by our colonial masters when they handed this sort of treatment mechanism to us. So yes, if now the discussion is high on it and people are becoming aware, then that's the way we may be going.
That's interesting. So, Doc, I'm just wondering, so if the Ghana Water Company's equipment cannot take away the heavy metals, then it means that we are all taking in the heavy metals and we are all going to get sick someday.
Yes, the system has, but then now we are having elevated levels of these metals, and that's why my co-panelist earlier said it's a matter of bioaccumulation. We are accumulating it, but we may not be aware. It will take time for it to now show off. And when it shows off, we'll be having a lot of medical issues that the health personnel will have to grapple with.
So, Dr. Charlotte, I'm in Accra. And why should I be worried that parts of or rivers in the western region, in the Ashanti region, any part of the country is polluted? Why should I be worried when it comes to my health?
Thank you. As Doc also rightly mentioned, that rivers flow, the river bodies are not stagnant, they are flowing as well. So if Western region rivers are being contaminated by some activities, maybe pollution from open defecation, illegal mining activities and all that, remember that these water bodies are still flowing. So it can't flow and then join other water bodies as well. And then these heavy metals or other pollutants in it can be transported to one region or the other. The other thing is, remember that as I said, now people can even buy things here, even food, packaged food here, and then send it as well. So if I'm actually preparing acheke, which is an Nzema land food, and maybe somebody in Accra is so much interested in acheke. Maybe he visited us in Western region, was in love with your acheke. And then he asked, oh, can you please send it over via a car? I mean, it's the same polluted water here that you've used to prepare the acheke.
And I love acheke.
Exactly. And then it will be transported to him or her in Accra. To him or her, it's just the food that he's interested in and he's eaten, but not knowing the polluted water that has been used to prepare. So in this world now, we are, there is, what I would say is there's diversity of life. We are interdependent. So you cannot solely say because I'm in Greater Accra and then no source of illegal mining around me, so I'm safe. I'm safe from these heavy metal polluted water and all that. No, you cannot be sure. So that is one thing that it behoves on all of us as a nation to actually pay attention and then cry out to help or educate ourselves to stop this menace of polluting our water bodies.
Now, back to the issue you mentioned earlier about the kinds of diseases you are recording in the health facilities. Tell us more about it.
Yes, so I might say that one of the diseases that is actually high now is kidney diseases or kidney failures, which we didn't used to see it like that. But now you're actually seeing, so it was worse to the extent that in the month of September, on my ward, almost everybody that came on admission had a component of kidney failure, either an acute form or a chronic form. So at a point, we were asking ourselves that what else are we not doing? But it comes back to all this pollution around us, that these things can affect us. And initially, we were seeing people with chronic diseases like hypertension, diabetes. They've had it for years before they will come down with kidney failures. But now, no. You can have as a young age as 25 years, sometimes even 14 years in SHS. And then even in JHS, coming down with kidney failures. And you are asking yourself, what is happening in our environment now? And another thing that we also notice is that they are actually coming from areas that are also high in illegal mining activities. And they actually would refer them because this is a center where we have facilities for management of such cases. So it is, I think it is a very good opportunity, as I said, to see these young people, because many a times we will grow and then involve in these illegal activities. And so if at this stage we are being educated of these diseases, then it is very important. Apart from the kidney diseases, the other thing we are also seeing on the rise are cancers. Cancers, initially we were also seeing cancers at advanced ages. Maybe somebody is 60 years, 70 years, but now we are also seeing cancers in younger people. So people I just lost a 24-year-old to liver cancer. and you ask yourself that, why at this stage? So also in the same environment, there are other things that are happening that perhaps we are not doing enough research to actually say that it is A that has caused this cancer. But if you're able to trace back, you can say that it is still with this polluted environment that we are seeing these high things. And we are also seeing cases like lung diseases. So a lot of lung diseases. Some people can come in with just lung failure. So we have something we call silicosis, fibrosis. And usually fibrosis are at end stages of lung diseases. And if you also trace back, it is the same polluted environment, especially even sometimes the miners themselves, those who are involved themselves, they are actually coming in. So you take the history and you ask, where do you work? Oh, I'm a Galamsey worker. So you ask yourself that, but is it that they are not just interested in their health, but just interested in the money that will come there and then? Because at the end of the day, after years later, they will come down with lung failures, and then you need to still treat and all that. So these are some of the diseases that we are seeing from the pollution that is actually going around.
And I guess that as an executive member of the Ghana Medical Association, you get these reports from across your members who are in other mining areas.
Yes, we do. We do get them. I mean, so as I said, even for Western regions, so let's say we take Sekondi Takoradi, we don't see a lot of the mining going on in Sekondi Takoradi Township. But from our colleagues who are in like Takwa, the other environments where the mining actually takes place, yes, they do get, and they always refer them to the bigger center here. So yes, it is happening in other mining areas across the country as well.
Now, Mr. Makumensa, now, what exactly are we not getting right when it comes to dealing with the issue of activities that are polluting our water bodies? Because with the way things are going, we are not just going to get to a point where we will not even have access to water, but we would all be ill with diseases.
So I think there are a number of things that we have to look at. We started by mentioning the issue of water safety. Water safety starts from the source of the water, though there are other things that also happen in the transportation and storage, etc. So we have to be looking at the risks from the source. So the issues that we've mentioned about the mining coming, how do we see it collectively? Do we even understand what we are doing to the sources of the water? I'm sure a number of us heard in the media recently when colleagues from the Ghana Water spoke about what they are contending with now in some of their treatment plants. So for instance, if by virtue of activities in the catchment, a plant that's supposed to treat water up to a certain level of cloudiness, so I think specific figures were mentioned. So 2,000 was the limit that, or basically what that system can deal with in terms of cloudiness in the units for cloudiness, which is NTU. So 2,000 NTU, a system designed for that, is now contending with 14,000 NTU, 7 times the load. And it has to be rendered clean enough for people to drink. So you can understand what's happening in the catchment. We've heard about pesticides and heavy metals also coming in. Even now, groundwater sources, there's an interaction between surface water and groundwater. So very soon, even the groundwater that we find safe, we will be making significant inroads in damaging the groundwater. So that's the catchment side. Then there are issues around infrastructure. Are we renewing the networks? There are leakages, and that's the entry point for pollution. Because if people have defecated in the open and there are leakages in the pipelines, then there's nothing in the pipeline, the water has gone out. That's what they call negative pressures, allowing such pollution to enter the system. So infrastructure also comes in. How much have we invested over time on renewing the infrastructure? There was an analysis that was done between Census 2010 and 2021. At the time of Census 2010, about 46% of people were relying on pipe-borne water. By 2021, that's about 32% now. It's gone down. And rather, what's happened? From 9% of people using sachet water, it's jumped to 37. So you can see what's happening, the infrastructure issue. And we also know that all these sachets also include or add to the load in the environment. So 37%, let's say a third of Ghanaians, we are about 33 million, 11 million. If even everybody drank one sachet a day, or half of us, or everybody among that 33% drank one sachet a day, that's 11,000 sachets. Where does it go in a day? And I'm not even talking about the bottles and the other plastics that go with it. So those are issues. Then we have to come to the household level, behaviors. We have already touched on behaviors in terms of open defecation, indiscriminate dumping of waste, and its attendant management issues. But also there are issues of storage of the water at the household level. We all have poly tanks now for a reason, because we don't get water all the time. So we have to store. But if I were to hazard and ask how many people have washed their tanks ever before, I'm not sure we'll get even, I could attempt, but I would not. So there are household level handling and storage issues as well. So we can talk about behaviors, we can talk about investments, we can talk about risk management within the catchments, we can talk about handling and storage at the household level, and a number of issues that have brought us to this situation, which we now have to look at critically, create the necessary awareness, knowledge. The evidence is there, we can see it, and start addressing them in a very deliberate way.
And I'm happy that you talked about the turbidity levels. Ghana's, at this point, we are around 14,000, but let me tell all of us that the standard, if you're talking about the standard turbidity level, we know it's supposed to be around 5. And so if it's around, the standard is 5, and we have a turbidity level of around 14,000, then we should know how much polluted this water is. It means the situation is very, very serious and critical. Now, Doc, answer now, Mr. Mwaku mentioned the fact that now most of us are resorting to taking sachet water. Is that good enough?
That's an interesting question. One may not be able to stick his neck out and say that's good enough, because we may not have tested the waters to know how it is in terms of quality-wise, how it was processed. Those that we have tested, we can attest to it that they are good enough for consumption. What about the others? Now, sachet water business is becoming the top business around because of availability of water under unhygienic conditions. And once they are processing this water under...
Oh, what did you eat? Oh, my usual food. But then somebody can mention that, oh, but I bought a different water from the usual one that I drink. So then that can tell you that probably there could have been contamination. But again, this is sealed. Who is checking, as he said? I mean, that particular brand of water that you drank, are you sure of the hygienic conditions? I mean, do we even know the people who are there? Are they in the right PPEs producing this water for us? The gallons or the poly tanks that they are using, I mean, are the right proportion of things that to decontaminate these waters? Are they doing the right thing? So yes, we cannot be assured that sachet water is the best. We cannot say, even for bottled water, because there have been times that we've seen that somebody bought sachet water and then there was something in it. That is not supposed to be there, but it happened. We've seen it 1 or 2 happening. So sometimes, yes, even the storage, where you bought it from, maybe if the person did it right, everything, but the storage room where you picked it from, sometimes you see it on the roadside, and then the road is very dusty. But these sachet water are packed in the stall, and then you just go for it. with all the dust that the cars and everything, but we still buy and we drink it. So yes, we cannot be assured that sachet water, and we can get contamination from it. I mean, abdominal pains, diarrhea, and vomiting. We can get it. Even viral infections that can still give us this diarrhea and vomiting. Some people can get it from drinking polluted water.
So is there any way that as ordinary people we can detect how safe any sachet water we are taking is? Is there any way?
I mean, this will be difficult, but the only thing I'm
asking
say,
because, like, I mean, it's what most of us drink.
Yeah.
That is what is always readily available. Maybe we do not want to take the water from the heavily polluted water resulting from galamsey or any illegal activity, and so we feel that yes, sachet water looks clean, but how sure can we be that it's really clean?
Yeah, so you cannot be sure, aside if we assume that every company that is certified by the FDA should have gone through the proper routines in coming up with a potable water for drinking. Aside that, what you can do for yourself is where you pick that sachet water, make sure it's in an environment that is clean. So that is one thing you can do for yourself, so that even if, let's say everything is clean, under proper restrictions, the water has been produced, the storage, you can judge that for yourselves. If I'm going to buy this sachet water from this storage environment, maybe it's by a gutter and all that, I will refrain from it. That's you can do for yourself. But aside going the length to check if the water in there is contaminated, the ordinary Ghanaian, I cannot do that, yes.
So obviously the bottom line is that we need to ensure that our water sources, that's our river bodies or groundwater sources or surface water sources, are clean, devoid of any pollution. Now, one issue that is coming up is, you mentioned the deformed babies that are born in some of these communities, and I'm told that there's a new phenomenon coming out that these babies are labeled river babies, and so they are sort of cursed babies. How does this come to you, Mr. Marco?
I think that's quite unfortunate. I'm just hearing about it. Yeah. So sometimes things we cannot explain, we give them all sorts of connotations. Obviously, this is informed by not being able to explain what would have happened to a baby. But the factors and the risks that cause these deformities, I think, need to be maybe more within this context and within this campaign, maybe to be spoken about a bit more for people to understand where these things come from and how they happen. Otherwise, we will get explanations and names like that, which are just explaining what they cannot explain normally. So I think that is probably where that has come from. To add a bit to what we had already spoken about, the other dimension, because you mentioned how would we know? The other dimension about water safety is the regulatory part of it. So she mentioned, testing and or maybe certifying some of the producers. But beyond certifying them, the regular regulatory issues, which is checking more regularly on the market and what have you, should also happen. It's the same principle that will also will be applied to the water utilities, so that we are sure that what is coming, because what you would have seen in Shama yesterday is not exactly the same that issues through the pipe after the treatment. Obviously, it has been rendered supposedly safe enough to drink, but there has to be a system that ensures that that is the case on a regular basis. Then people might also be move away from the imprint in their mind that, okay, this water came from Shama, it was brown where I saw it, so it couldn't be any good by the time I'm drinking it. Yeah, even though the processes would have been carried through. So I think regulation is also a key part of what we should look at. But on the matter of the names being given to the babies, that's really unfortunate. It needs to be addressed. But it is heavily informed by the fact that we do not know the impact of some of our activities on our own health.
We'll come back and talk more about the perceptions and the imprints of what we see on the questions we take about water. But Doc, before I get to Dr. Eugene, and I want your perspective on how we can explain the science behind these deformities so that people get to understand and appreciate why they may be experiencing that. They not just think that there's a curse.
All right. So, yes, I mean, it's not every deformity with newborn babies that are always associated with water pollution, it's abnormalities, just with the genes or the makeup of these babies. Or even sometimes, depending on the age of the mother, if the mother is very old at conception and all that, some changes can happen. But when we want to connect water pollution to babies being formed with deformity, babies born with deformities, yes, there was a research that was done where they actually assessed fish in rivers which were polluted with mercury. That's the particular metal that they actually tested. And then they were also able to link the fact that some pregnant women ate fish from that river, and then they delivered babies that had that kind of deformity. So that's one research that has come up that is giving us evidence with that. And what mercury can do is that mercury, when you eat, depending on the amount that you ingest, can deposit in our body tissues. So in the same way that it deposits in the mother's tissues, gets into her blood, that blood gets to the baby through the placenta, and it can deposit in the baby's growing brain, growing nerves, and then other places. And depending on where this tissue, this lead gets deposited in that baby, then you can have that effect. So if it gets deposited in the baby's brain, the nerve, or we call it the nervous system, then you can have these effects of maybe delayed walking, difficulty in movement, and then sometimes speech abnormalities that we are seeing. But it is not to say that all birth deformities are related to mercury toxicity or water pollution. But in people who are in these areas with heavy metal water pollution, these are some of the researches that have come up with it.
So let me remind our viewers and our guests here that we are on Climate Talks, brought to you by GBC and the German Embassy. Today we are looking at climate and water security as we look at access to clean water. And also just a reminder that we'll open up the panel, we'll open up the conversation so that you can also make contributions to the conversation. Now, Dr. Ansah, from your point of view and your perspective, how do you think that we can explain the science behind some of these deformities? If you've done any research or you know of any research that we can use to back these phenomena happening.
Okay, thank you. In my part as an environmental chemist, what we do is that we assess samples based on the media under concern, whether it's soil or water or even air, to know what might be in as far as contaminants is concerned. And we have well-documented effects of metals or pollutants in the environment. So we do prediction, but then the public health personnel will now interact with human samples so as to find out whether our prediction is same as is found in the person. Talk of the newborn babies that have got deformities. Most of mercury that is being used as far as mining areas is concerned is that the mercury is amalgamated with the gold. And after the amalgamation, it is roasted and the mercury is dispelled. It gets into the gaseous state. Now, mercury is volatile. So, once it's in the air and it's airborne, it moves. So, we will not only have localized pollution, but there will be a delocalized pollution as well. So, you could be anywhere, and you might be breathing in this mercury, which would go a long way to affect fetus that may be developing in you as a woman.
So, even if it's not in the water, once it's in the atmosphere, you can inhale it?
Yes, please.
That's very serious.
that's how serious mercury toxicity is. Mercury has got divergent ways of affecting human beings. So this problem of illegal mining that we are talking about is not a local issue that anybody anywhere can sit aloof and say that I'm not concerned with whatever is going on because it's not happening in my community, it's far away from me. The effect will always come to you.
That's very serious. I'm actually sharing right here. Hopefully, I've not inhaled mercury anywhere without my knowledge. So, we're also live on Twin City Radio, and I would take some questions from our audience. If you have any questions, students, this is actually for you because you are future, so you need to make comments. I hope you're understanding the issues that are being raised, so please ask questions as and when you feel necessary. Now, Dr. Ansah, I'll come back to you again. Apart from mercury, are there any other metals we are finding in these water bodies or the environment that we should be worried about?
Well, apart from mercury, arsenic runs as the topmost metal with its toxicity. That's also found in both soil and water. Then you can also talk of cadmium, cobalt, chromium, manganese, iron, lead, nickel. All these are metals that has been identified and has been published in literature.
So please, if you want to ask any questions, please raise your hands. The microphone will be brought to you, and then you can go ahead and then ask your questions. So if you want to ask any questions, please raise your hands. Let's get the microphone to you so you can ask your questions. Now, Dr. Mr. Mwako, how can we prioritize the need, whether as people, government, how can we prioritize the needs to get potable water to the people, to ordinary people?
Yeah, so I think we already mentioned its importance. So I think the priority you would think would derive naturally from the importance of it, given that many of our development goals hinge clearly on water. But the issues that we raised here are very important in prioritizing. What is the regulatory environment in which we are producing water for people to drink? What are the technologies we are using, considering that we are talking climate as well? What are the issues in terms of the uses of water? Because water resources development is an area to look at in an integrated way. Water is not just for drinking. I'm sure we all know that there are other uses. But the priority for us here is the drinking water. So we have to look at the planning of our water resources again. We also have to look at, again, the infrastructure that we are using. So pipelines that may be now rotting or out of service, and reinvesting in such areas to make the water safe. Then there are also issues of behavior that we mentioned. Beautification is the one that comes up together with the Galamsey menace. Topical at this moment, but the other ones, I mean, we also talked about indiscriminate use of pesticides and other chemicals close to our water bodies or within the catchment, which will eventually find their way into the water bodies as another area. So in prioritizing, we need to be very deliberate in the planning, management of the resource, how it is used, how the use is regulated, the services that derive from it, and how those services are regulated as well. And of course, investments and how we finance all these development need to be looked at in an approach that can be sustained. Sometimes we know, for instance, that some states in the past have put that in rural areas, for instance, up to a third of the water systems at any given time are not working. So you could put the investment in place and think that is there, the people are covered. But if it is not working, maintenance issues, sustainability issues, then we are not getting the benefit from it. So it's a whole lot of things that we have to look at if we say we are prioritizing it and address them.
Now, Dr. Charlotte, while Mr. Mwakumenza was talking about how we should prioritize the need to provide potable water, it just came to mind, considering the number of water-related diseases that you are reporting in your facilities, do we have the capacity to deal with the numbers we are getting?
Thank you. You mean for the health facilities?
You said for the health facilities, you have the capacity, the infrastructure, the resources?
So I would say no. We don't have enough facilities and resources to, hold the number of cases that are churning in every time, especially when it comes with things that, when you talk about facilities, so if we, let's say, have the facility in terms of the building, the interventions, the doctors, yes, to some extent. Then I would say no to the extent when it comes to finances. Because the same people that are having these conditions don't have the money to now pay for the dialysis. They don't have the money to now, maybe if you have lung failure that you need to be on oxygen. Sometimes you need to buy oxygen at home to use because the lungs are destroyed, and all that you can do is a lung transplant. So till you get access to a lung transplant, you need oxygen on standby. But that facility, that money to purchase is not available. So to some extent, the facilities are available. The health center is there, the hospital is there, the dialysis machine is there, but it's not even enough. If, let's say, in a day, 10 people have to be dialyzed, they cannot be dialyzed at a time because the number of machines available are maybe 5. So we have to run in 10. What if by the time it gets to your 10, you couldn't wait enough and then something happens? Or maybe you have to be referred all the way from as far back as maybe Takwa, right through to Takra, looking at our road, and you couldn't make it till you get to where dialysis is available. What happens to you? So the facilities, we are not there yet. And so that is why we need to emphasize on preventing the pollution from happening. And so all of us, whether in our churches, as we meet friends, families, we need to talk about it. That galamsey or illegal mining has to stop. Open defecation has to stop. If you are fishing illegally with chemicals, it has to stop. Because when our kidneys are destroyed, we will not have the facilities to get remedies for it. Even transplants. How many of us can afford kidney transplants if our kidneys fail? So that is a big issue. Facilities, we are not there yet that everybody can afford.
Well, thank you for that. I'm told that we have some questions in the audience. We'll take those questions and then hopefully get some responses from you. Hi, hello.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the discussion. I think this is eye-opening. My question goes to Dr. Eugene. So it was very interesting to know that the mercury can also be volatilized. And so my question is, during the COVID-19 so there was a face mask produced, and face mask we know is to capture bacteria. So is there an option? Because for water, I can decide to try my best and get quality access to water. But with air, I can't see and I cannot, detect if this air is polluted. So is there an option whereby there's a mask that can, prevent me taking in this mercury that is in the air? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Eugene, we'll take 3 questions and then we'll come and take the responses. So we'll take our second question. You have a question? Okay, hold. The microphone will go to you.
Good afternoon to all of us. My name is Rick Anani Simon, and I'm with the T-Rock Foundation Project Coordinator. Mine is not really a question, but a contribution. With your permission, if I may. So I think over the past weeks, I've had the opportunity to move through all the districts and municipalities in Western region. And I had some questions I wanted to, share. I've been able to engage with some local miners and those who engage in the practice of galamsey. And the striking thing is that most of these people are not, willing to stop the practice. So I think that the panelists have been able to provide, very instrumental insight into the effect of the problem. But I also want to, I'll be very delighted if we can touch more on the root cause of the problem. We've been able to talk more about the effects, the health complaints, and all of that. It's actually a problem. In a recent article, I made a case. The Galamsey menace, we need to, analyze it in a way that we look at the fruit of the problem and also look at the root of the problem before we prefer a solution. Whichever trajectory we decide to tow as a country, either going for a ban or making it more sustainable or providing other alternatives, it is very important that we understand the full scope of the problem. Otherwise, we can't prefer a solution to this menace. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm told one of the students has a question. Okay, please go ahead. So we'll come to you.
So I would want to make a contribution and end up with my question. Actually, probably I should begin with my questions. How is that be to appreciate the situation and work at it? That's my question. For my contribution, testing is expensive. Look, you talk about turbidity, about 14,000 BTU, blah, blah, blah. This is the easy one that they see and can test. What they cannot see easily is the dissolved chemicals and metals like mercury, arsenic, and so forth and so on. Indeed, I dare say that if you look at this whole western region here, we probably do not even have a lab that is capable of testing it. So if you have to do that, you have to move your sample from here to Accra. And I also dare say that even in Accra, to get a lab that tests for mercury, you get the very high-end labs, and therefore it becomes increasingly expensive. So for me, the bottom line is that we have to go back to what we used to say, prevention is better than cure, which then brings me to the question of, again, it's expensive as the contaminants get complicated. I mean, if I have turbidity, we know about it. We know how to deal with it. If you ask me now how to remove mercury, I don't know. We don't even know. And that is, so the Ghana water, what they are seeing, turbidity, they can handle it. What they are not telling us is whether they are seeing mercury, and if they even see the mercury, whether they are capable of removing it. And if even they have, then they cannot be charging us the sort of prices they are giving us for the water we drink. It means that you might jack up the price to be able to treat, to be able to test. So please, I think that we go back. Prevention has always been better than cure.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have 3 questions. Mr. Samuel Amakumensa, you want to take any of the questions? One specifically goes to Dr. Eugene about the wearing of nose mask, and then there's a question about how we get the powers that be to act, and also about getting the full scale about what is really causing or making people go into Galamsey because you're not really ready to stop. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think I'll start by quickly commenting on the very last submission we had. So that is why we are talking about water safety, addressing the risks before the harm is done. So I think that is a message worth amplifying in our discussions. Brings me to how we get the powers that be to address the issues. I think we should be prepared to be in that discussion for the long haul. As the other submission came, it is not a straightforward issue of what caused Galamsey and how to stop it. What is clear is that in addressing the risks to our drinking water, if we want to, it's a discussion that we have to continue having. We should be prepared to have and to try to influence based on the evidence we have, and also harping a bit more on the risks. We find that the risk-based approach is not a silver bullet, but it helps better than education and things like that. in addition to education, because when people see the risks, they respond. When people do not see any risks, just educating them and sensitizing them does not go that far. So there's a mix of things that we have to do to bring the powers that be, the attention of the powers that be to this issue. That is not to say it's an easy road, but we have to continue doing it and finding creative ways around amplifying the risks involved in the situation that we are seeing. I think that will take us some way.
Dr. Charlotte, there was also a question about addressing really the root cause. I've heard people say that the root cause of this whole Galamsey issue is the unemployment rate. Because most of those who engage in this practice that's destroying the water bodies do not really have any source of employment, and they feel that that is the only thing they can easily do to get money to sustain themselves.
Yes. I mean, to some extent it's true, but should we say because there is no job for you, so you need to destroy the environment? I think that, as he rightly said, it's about letting them know the risk and then what the outcomes of these things they are doing are. So if you actually see some of the pictures where the individual actually mining is in the pits and then he's using these same chemicals, apart from the inhalation, it can also be absorbed directly onto their skin. So if we paint this picture to them that, yes, you are unemployed, you don't have work to do, but this thing is fetching you money. But at the end of the day, this same money, you are going to use everything to take care of your ill health. I mean, which one would you weigh? So I think, yes, education has to come in, letting them know through education the risk and the complications. And it is not in any way justifiable to say, because I'm unemployed or there's no work for the youth, we should engage in something that is destroying the environment.
Now, Dr. Ansah, there was a question to you about the use of nose masks.
Yes, the use of nose mask, as the one who asked the question rightly said, during COVID-19, we were all using nose mask as a preventive measure. But even with that, you could see that there was variation in the nose mask that was being used. Some were using cloth, others were using a certain nose mask with 2 layers, 1 layer. Others were going for even 3 layers. It's all about the pore size. Mercury being airborne may not necessarily consider the pore size of your nose mask that you are using. So again, it boils down to prevention. Let us encourage our people to stop this use of this poisonous chemical, and we will all be safe. And to add on to earlier, what we all need to do, it boils down on education. We need to educate ourselves. When we educate ourselves to know the effects, the roots that these contaminants get into our bodies and affect us, we may have a paradigm shift in our thinking. My co-panelists rightly mentioned that dermal contact is one of the key ways that these pollutants get into us. Dermal contact is there, ingestion is there, inhalation is there. All these are pathways that we get these contaminants into our body. When you visit Galamsey-prone sites and you interact with the miners, they will tell you several things that occur to them body-wise. Others will tell you that they get shivers, they get tremors, they shake a lot. As a result of that, they have become addicted to consumption of analgesics, which I know Dr. Charlotte will confirm to that. They are always taking in analgesics and they are going for the stronger type, not the paracetamols. They are going for the tramadols and others. All these, they don't know where they are getting it from. So if there is this education going on, I think we will have a paradigm shift from those who are key actors in this.
Thank you so much. So let me just say again that the program is Climate Talks, brought to you by GBC and the German Embassy, and today we are looking at climate and water security as we assess, we look at access to clean water. We'll take a break. We'll be back shortly. Please stay.